Motels aren't supposed to be memorable. They're places you forget on purpose. A bed, a shower, four walls you never think about again. That's why when a place sticks in your head years later, not because it was scary, but because it felt off, you know something went wrong. Tonight you're listening to a collection of stories, or maybe just one long mistake I never really walked away from. And if you've ever stayed somewhere that made you double lock the door, keep your shoes on, or sleep with one eye open. Send it in. We don't need monsters. We just need places that shouldn't exist. This is what happened the night I stopped at a roadside motel I can't find again. I wasn't supposed to stop. That's important. I was tired, yes, but not falling asleep at the wheel. Just that heavy kind of tired where your judgment gets flexible. The sign was old, hand-painted, not flashy, not inviting, just an arrow, no name. The building sat a little too far from the road, like it had been placed. There quietly, hoping no one would look too hard. There were a few cars in the lot, all parked perfectly straight, no music, no voices, no open windows. I remember thinking, at least it's quiet. That thought didn't age well. The front office smelled like disinfectant and something stale underneath it. Behind the counter sat a man in his late 50s, maybe older. Gray hair, clean shirt, no badge, no name tag. He didn't ask for my ID, didn't ask how long I'd be staying. He just looked at me for a few seconds longer than normal, then said, "You're alone, right?" "Yes." He nodded as if confirming something he already knew. Then he slid a key toward me. No paperwork, no clipboard, just a metal key with a plastic tag. "You can park right in front," he said. "Easier that way." "For what?" I asked. He smiled politely. "Leaving?" The room looked normal. That was the problem. It looked like every motel room I'd ever seen, but almost too carefully arranged. The bedspread had no wrinkles. The TV remote was aligned perfectly with the edge of the nightstand. The chair hadn't been moved in a long time, and the mirror above the desk. It was angled slightly downward, pointed directly at the bed. I noticed scratch marks on the doorframe near the lock. Old ones, painted over more than once. Someone had tried to reinforce the door at some point. Failed. I locked it anyway. Then I heard voices. Not loud, not clear. Muffled conversation coming through the wall. Two people, maybe three, talking. Calmly, casually, like neighbors in the next room. I relaxed a little, until I realized something. There were no cars parked next to mine. The voices stopped. Then came movement. Not footsteps in the hallway. Movement inside the walls. Like someone shifting weight, leaning, listening. I told myself it was pipes. Old buildings make noise. But pipes don't pause when you stop breathing. Whatever it was, paused. Then came a knock. Not on the door. On the wall beside the bed. One knock. Waiting. I didn't respond. Another knock. Closer to where my head was resting. Then a voice, low, controlled, spoken carefully through the wall. "You don't need to be nervous." I sat up. My heart was racing, but my brain was still trying to be reasonable. "Who is this?" I asked. A pause. Then, "We just want to make sure you're comfortable." That sentence sounded practiced, like it had been used many times before. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. The handle didn't turn, not locked, just stiff, like something on the other side was holding it. Then the voice again, closer now, still calm. "People usually don't leave right away." That's when I noticed something through the mirror. My car. Its headlights were off, but someone was sitting inside it, in the driver's seat, perfectly still, facing the building, waiting. I froze in the hallway, gripping the edge of the doorframe. The car didn't move. The figure inside didn't move. Not a shadow, not a blink, just stillness, like they were studying me. I thought about screaming, but it would only give them a reaction, and I didn't want a reaction. I tried the handle again. It turned this time, but the door resisted slightly. as if the building itself didn't want me to leave. Stepping outside, the parking lot was empty. No other cars, no people. Just the dull neon sign flickering vacancy. I went back to the car. Maybe I could drive away, maybe the figure was gone. It wasn't. They were watching from inside, hands on the wheel. Nothing threatening, nothing overt. Just watching. I got in, locked the doors, and stared at the rearview mirror. The motel didn't have an office light on anymore. No one inside, but I could feel it. The same calm, meticulous attention I felt in the room. I considered calling the police, thought better of it. If they wanted attention, giving them a phone call might be the wrong thing. Instead, I drove slowly around the lot, pretending I didn't notice the figure, pretending nothing was wrong. The lot was strangely small, almost like the motel itself had shrunk. Rooms I remembered passing before seemed to have shifted. And then I realized I didn't see room 6 anymore. I looked for the door, the number. Nothing. Only walls, windows that reflected the car headlights back at me like mirrors, and a hallway that didn't exist when I first arrived. I finally parked, heart hammering. The figure in the car hadn't moved. I stepped out. Quiet. Each footstep on the asphalt echoed too loudly. The neon flickered again. Vacancy. No longer an offer, not an invitation, a statement. I walked to the office, daring a peek. The window was dark, empty. No man behind the counter, no forms, no key tags, nothing. Only a single folded note on the counter. I unfolded it slowly, written in neat, careful handwriting. Check your room again. I ran, not back to the car, not toward the highway. I ran toward the building. The door to the hallway opened automatically, as if it had been waiting. Room 6 was there, pristine, exactly as I left it. No sign of the scratches, no misplaced objects, no disturbance at all. Except the bedspread was slightly lifted at the corner, and a pair of footprints pressed lightly into the carpet, leading away from the bed toward the door. I realized then that it wasn't just observation anymore. Someone, or something, had been in my room while I was gone. I didn't know why. I didn't know what they wanted. But I knew this. They had been studying me long before I arrived. I didn't sit on the bed. I didn't touch anything. I stood in the middle of the room listening. The motel wasn't silent. It was selectively quiet. No insects, no wind, no distant highway noise. Just faint sounds that didn't quite line up. A door closing somewhere down the hallway. Soft footsteps that stopped whenever I tried to focus on them. A television murmuring behind a wall, even though every other room looked empty. I pressed my ear to the door. Someone was walking past. Slow, unhurried, like they had nowhere else to be. I waited until the sound faded, then opened the door an inch. The hallway looked longer than before. Not physically longer, emptier. The lights were on, but they felt dimmer, like they'd been turned down just enough to make you doubt your eyes. Room numbers skipped. I was certain there used to be a room 5. I stepped into the hallway. At the far end, a door stood open. Room 9. The inside light was on. I hadn't seen anyone check in. I hadn't heard a car arrive. But the room was occupied. A man sat on the edge of the bed, his back to me. Still. Not asleep. Waiting. I cleared my throat. He didn't react. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "You okay?" Nothing. I took a step closer. That's when I noticed the smell. Not rot, not mold, disinfectant. Strong, clinical, like something used to erase evidence. The man finally spoke. "You shouldn't walk the halls alone here." His voice was calm, polite. I stopped. "Why?" I asked. He tilted his head slightly, like he was considering how much to say. "Because people start to think you're a guest." I frowned. "I am a guest." He turned just enough for me to see his face in profile. His eyes were open, wide, unblinking, and his skin looked stretched, tight, like he hadn't slept in days. "No," he said softly. "You're still temporary." A door slammed somewhere behind me. I spun around. When I looked back, room 9 was empty. The bed untouched, the light off, like no one had ever been there. I walked back to my room, heart racing. Inside, something had changed. My bag was open. My clothes were neatly folded on the bed, and taped to the bathroom mirror, in the same careful handwriting as before, was another note. "Guests who stay inside their rooms leave. Guests who explore, don't." I locked the door, sat on the floor, and for the first time since arriving, I understood the rule of this place. The motel wasn't trapping people by force. It was waiting for them to decide. I couldn't sleep. The room was quiet, but my mind was loud. Every creak in the walls, every hum of the air conditioner felt intentional, like the building itself was watching me. I got up and walked to the window. The neon sign outside flickered in blue and red, illuminating the empty parking lot. Not a single car, not a single person. I decided to check the lobby. It was deserted, just like the rest of the place, but the front desk phone rang. No one answered when I picked it up. Only a soft click. Then, silence. I hung up. On a hunch, I walked back to the hallway, noticing the room numbers again. They didn't just skip, they shifted. I could swear room 5 was there now, sandwiched between 4 and 6. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. The room was different. Not physically, but it felt lived in. The bed was made perfectly, as if someone had just left. A half-empty cup of coffee on the nightstand. A magazine open to the middle page, face down. No footprints in the carpet. No signs of a person. I stepped closer. On the wall above the bed, there were photos taped haphazardly. All of them. People who had stayed here. Some smiling, some with faces blurred in low-resolution hotel cameras. And then I noticed the dates, written on the bottom corner in faded ink. Some of the guests were listed as having stayed here decades ago. Some were still missing. The room had a smell I hadn't recognized before. Paper, old ink, something dry and dusty, but also faintly metallic, like iron. I turned away, and that's when I saw it. A shadow moving across the floor. Not a person, not quite. It mimicked me. Every movement I made, it echoed. Slow, deliberate, careful. I froze. A note fluttered on the bed as if it had been placed by an invisible hand. The rooms remember everything. They just wait for someone to notice. I left the room immediately, closing the door behind me, but I could feel the weight of the building itself following me down the hallway. Back in my room, I checked the bed. The note from the bathroom mirror earlier was gone. In its place, another one appeared, resting neatly on the pillow. Explorers never leave. Observers leave only pieces of themselves behind. I didn't want to leave the room again. Not for anything. Not the bathroom. Not the hallway. But I couldn't stop thinking about the people in the photos. Some of them looked directly at me, their eyes accusing, almost pleading. And that's when I realized this motel didn't need to trap people. It waited for them to stay. For them to forget they had anywhere else to go. For them to become another memory the rooms could hold. I couldn't sleep again. Not really. Every sound, pipes rattling, the hum of the air conditioner, the distant creak of the hall, kept me on edge. I decided to leave. I packed my things quickly, avoiding the drawers and cabinets like the room itself would punish me if I touched them. At the front desk, the lobby was empty. No clerk, no paperwork, just the soft buzz of fluorescent lights. I slid my key card across the counter. Nothing happened. The door to the parking lot was locked. I tried the side exit. Locked. The neon sign outside buzzed, almost impatiently, casting that harsh red and blue glow across the lobby. I realized something. This motel didn't let people leave on their own terms. I ran back to my room, thinking maybe there was a way to break the pattern. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. I could see my room number, still room 5, but the door looked different, older, the paint peeling, a thin layer of dust that hadn't been there before. I pushed it open. Inside, the room was unchanged, and yet entirely wrong. The photos on the wall now included me. One of the pictures, blurred like the others, showed me lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The timestamp read, "Just a few minutes ago." My stomach turned. I ran to the bathroom. The mirror was fogged, though I hadn't turned on any water. Words appeared on the glass, as if written by an unseen finger. No one leaves without leaving something behind. I tried the windows. Locked. The air conditioner hummed, vibrating against the walls. I could hear whispers coming from the vents, soft enough that I couldn't make out the words. I sat on the bed, trying to rationalize. I told myself it was a trick of exhaustion, a glitch in the building's plumbing, the play of light and shadow. Then the phone rang. Not the front desk phone, not the room phone. A muted, tinny ring, coming from the air vent. I answered, half laughing, half panicked. "Hello?" A voice, calm, almost clinical, spoke. "Checkout is impossible until your room is complete." I didn't understand. "Complete?" I asked. "Everyone who stays here leaves pieces behind. Some leave clothes, some leave memories, some leave themselves." The line went dead. I looked at the bed, the photos, my own face in the blur of someone else's memory. The walls seemed to lean closer, the ceiling lower. The floorboards groaned. I ran down the hallway. Room 432. They all looked like my room, every door the same, every number the same. Then I saw the exit doors. They were open. I ran for them, sprinted across the lobby, and burst into the parking lot. The asphalt was wet, though it hadn't rained. My car was there, keys in the ignition. I jumped in, I drove, I didn't look back. Hours later, I stopped at a diner to calm down. I pulled my phone out to call the front desk, to report the motel. There was a picture in my camera roll. Me, lying on the bed in room 5. Timestamp, the moment I left the parking lot. No one else was there. I've never returned to that road. I never will. But sometimes, late at night, when I pass a neon motel sign flickering in the distance, I think I see someone in the window, watching, waiting. And I realize some places don't just trap people. They collect them. And maybe I left something behind. And if you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to our channel to receive more stories like this. Until next time.